So, what to make of Trump's proto-planeteers? Ben Carson seems a no-brainer, pun unapologetically intended. Serial philanderer cum perennial Trump basher Nikki Haley is a bit of a living, breathing eye roll. Jeff Sessions was probably a given. I know less than fuck all about Andy Puzder, but he makes a mean sandwich, folks. And General James Mattis is basically Rambo with rheumatism. Seriously, look up this fucker's quotes sometime. He makes Patton look like a fucking hostage negotiator. And while the Goldman Sachs connection gives me pause, otherwise, I don't know a fuck of a lot about Stephen Mnuchin, apart from the fact that he makes me wish he could use names in Scrabble. To be blunt, fuck the hell if I know. And fuck, if even my reflexively opinionated ass is somewhat ambiguous on the topic, well, the paragons of impartiality in the media should be fucking Switzerland, right? Right?
Wrong.
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 All right, Steve Bannon, new senior counselor to the president-elect, describes himself as having created the online platform for the alt-right. His goal is to create a whites-only homeland in the United States.
Bannon has a clear tie to white nationalists. Clear tie.
He's a racist. He advances anti-Semitic views.
Imagine that one of the worst people you know is heading up a presidential campaign. That's pretty much, where I'm at this morning.
Look, if he'd stuck to Bannon bashing, we might have suspected Trump's appointments are legitimately flawed. It's not like we don't have reservations of our own, but ain't it just a bitch how no matter who Trump appoints, irrespective of allegiance, whatever their depraved or exotic origin, the media's hyperbolic reaction is fucking invariable? Fuck, James Mattis! He knew a guy who knows a chick who lived down the street from a dude who had a phone conversation with a cat who might have used the N-word one time. Well, fuck Trump! Way to hire a Hitler. CNN, allow me to spare you further futile efforts. The Weimar well is bone fucking dry, and this perpetual recitation of the boy who cried Russia is no more effective than it was back in Red October. In retrospect, the media really should have seen this coming when the Trump accusers began to form a human fucking pyramid, and yet everyone but the most slavering Hillary devotees merely shrugged in unison. If you'd kept it at just the one accuser, maybe two, we may have genuinely wondered, but when they're signing up every Tom, Dick, and Harriet to claim he copped a cunt, resurrecting Lee Marvin's reanimated corpse to claim Trump gave him an uncomfortably tender back rub at the Boca one time, misogyny didn't kill your accuser's credibility. You did, Slick! You could have had each individual accuser pause mid-sob to wink at the camera and not tipped your hand any harder. Mauled by the tiger, one shame on the tiger, but if you report 19 tiger maulings in my immediate vicinity and I live in a bathysphere at the base of the Atlantic, shut the fuck up and give me the 5-day forecast. In my election rant, I argue that we haven't seen this level of institutional corruption since the Prohibition era, and argue that Trump should follow the example of Elliot Ness by forming his own team of Untouchables, which every limberdick lib took as their cue to point out their increasingly circuitous connection to one shitty group or another. But how can he trade the swamp? He's filling his cabinet with swamp scum. Well, it took me all night, but it was worth it. And before you regale me with how his labor secretary has an immediate second distant bifurcated cousin thrice removed through a second marriage whose neighbor's milkman once walked into a Goldman Sachs in a completely anticipated turn of events, I think you fucks misunderstood me. Elliot Ness's Untouchables weren't chosen for their choir boy backgrounds or boundless moral certitude. They were chosen for loyalty. Ness reasoned rightly that with organized crime's tendrils stretching everywhere from the police to City Hall, it was far more important to have devoted friends than decent ones. Hell, Ness himself was a lush and a lech whose conduct in a car accident was called well into question years later. But this wasn't about Elliot Ness's moral character or that of his fellows. It was about a mission to clean up the city of Chicago, and to that end he succeeded, at least as much as any single human being could at that time. And he did that because when the entire city and much of the adjoining ones were out for his blood, he kept it close. Consequently, Capone couldn't penetrate the firewall of fealty, and they ultimately wore his organization down and won the day. I've said it before, but allow me to reiterate. If and when Trump fucks up, save me a pitchfork. I'll be there with bells on. But looking at this cabinet, I see a man keeping it close. Not that I don't expect at least one major conciliatory pick for the cabinet. We can be principled, but we also have to live in the real world. I mean, this is a man still every bit as much at war with his own party as with the opposite one. Anyone else find it highly illuminating that right after it came out that Trump was just being a cock tease with all that Secretary of State Romney business? Wouldn't you know it? Fellow establishment hack John McCain was suddenly flapping his fossilized jowls about how we need to take this Russian hack seriously, my friends. Well, that's a coinky of a goddamn dink. I'm not saying don't criticize the appointments. Fuck, I have more reservations than Montana. But they come with the caveat that the cabinet is not the president. And when betting on who's going to come out ahead if a contentious internal conflict should arise, Donald Trump, the guy who just fought the entire planet and won? Or a micro-retinue of the very same establishment hacks that failed to take him down once already? I'm betting the farm on the guy with a dead fox glued to his fucking head. Doubt if you must, but leave the declamatory hyperbole where it belongs. An IGN review. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed.
In the event Donald wins, I have no doubt in my mind the market tanks.
Wrong.
Who would have thunk it? A huge market rally after Trump is elected president.
Correct.